with stains in them.
with stains in them.
So, what would you say the ratio would be to a picture with a stain in it to the picture that you wait for it to pop up and then it comes up with nothing?
2%, 1%. I mean, it's really very low. I mean,
Yeah,
I had to like go to a lot of shafts, to find something.
yeah, I bet. Yeah, that takes a lot of dedication. I commend you. We still don't know. Nobody still knows what's going on with the stains, or
Yeah, well, at that time, NASA said there were dust slides.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
I was thinking, really? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, what kind of dust does that? And one thing I did, for example, is I went and studied like Earth landscapes, on this planet, and trying to see something that might be similar to that. And I could not find anything that had a light dust layer exposing a darker dust layer underneath. I mean, there's nothing like that you can find. But you could find water stains, seepages.
Yeah.
So it starts from the top of a hill and then it kind of seeps down and kind of moistens it. So.
Well, I guess at that time they weren't even really ready to accept the fact that there was water on Mars, or
Exactly. Well, at that time, I mean, the prevalent idea was that Mars, all the water features that you see, all the channels and everything else, was created by liquid, frozen CO2, carbon dioxide. That there was no water. I mean, these guys are so hydrophobic, right?
Yeah.
They went at extreme to take carbon dioxide. I said, really? I mean, how's that going to happen? And when I presented this paper, my SEEPS paper, at the Mars Society Convention at Stanford University, this is in 2001.
Okay.
And the presenter before me was Dr. Richard Hoffman, who was the scientist promoting this idea. So
Wow.
So I sat in an audience because I was next after him. And there were probably about 10 people in the audience. He did his thing and talking about the triple point of water, how it's impossible for water to be liquid because of all these factors. And a few people clapped, he went off. And I went on. It's like people started showing up. I mean, it almost filled the auditorium. And then at the end, everybody had all these questions. And as a matter of fact, I got the little thing on the neck, the cane, to get on stage. But there was a lot more interest in water on Mars than the CO2 concept. So.
That must have been a good feeling.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, exactly. Now everyone knows that there's water on Mars, and who knows? Like, it seems like it's just a matter of time nowadays until we find out what exactly is going on there.
Right.
Have you must have been right in when the Curiosity rover touched down and all that. You must have been stoked for that.
Oh yeah, watched it live. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would make it. It's a pretty intricate maneuver they were doing, so I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about what's actually going on there. Like, you've got to shoot a rocket from a moving platform to a moving target at where it's going to be in 9 months.
Right.
And so, but Mars has always seemed to be a little bit doomed. Like, I think they were saying it's well less than half of missions to Mars actually make it.
Yeah, especially the Russians were, they had some bad luck as well with the Phobos missions.
Oh yeah, Phobos. Yeah, I wanna get into that for sure. Let's take a quick time out, and when we get back, I'd love to get into the Phobos chat.
Great, sounds good.
Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back with our talk with Efrain Palermo and his Mars research and the moons of Mars as well. Graham, I believe you had a couple things you wanted to ask Efrain?
Yeah, while we're still on the Mars topic, before we go to Phobos, I was just thinking, I just heard recently from a guy that does silverscreensaucers.com, and he was talking about Hollywood and Mars, and I found it kind of funny that we were just about to do your interview, and he was talking about how Mars, there's something about Mars in the movies and in Hollywood where it doesn't really seem to do very well. Like all the deep space ET movies and that type of stuff seems to do a lot better. And I just hadn't really thought about it like that. But when you think about all the movies, yeah, it doesn't seem to do very well. And I wondered if that's because it's such a visible planet to us. Like it's this red planet that doesn't look like it's gonna have any life. Have you ever thought about that at all?
Yeah, I think what it is back before we landed on Mars, before the Viking missions and all of that, before we had high resolution imaging of Mars, back in the day with Percival Lowell, if Mars had canals.
Right.
It was a mystery. It's like you could, Lowell thought there was like a blooming, forest was taken over because you see green patches, had seasons. So the imagination went, wow, well, there must be civilization if you have canals and man-made or alien-made.
Yeah.
Mars, right? So there's a lot of excitement. And at that time, there are a lot of movies about Mars, right? I mean, there's a lot of interest in Mars, or books about Mars. But once we landed and found out it's just a dry piece of rock, the imagination just kind of got stepped on, so, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But with the ETs, we don't know what's out there.
Right.
That's an imagination. I mean, we haven't found out that the universe is empty, which
Right.
I know it isn't. I'm sure it isn't.
Yeah.
But so that leaves room for, movies, ideas, Hollywood, because you can do anything you want because you can't prove it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that's funny. We were actually talking about that today, about how if they somehow can find that there used to be intelligent life on Mars, or they find life on one of these moons like Europa or Titan, what do you think that would do to the Drake equation?
Well, it's totally just blow it up. I mean, we can find something just locally.
Yeah, then I mean,
like his equation, I think, had one part that would just add to it. It would just be exponential.
yeah, I mean, at that point, I think we'd have to accept the fact that life is probably not only everywhere in the universe, but probably a lot more common than we could ever imagine.
Oh, sure.
And then, with some of your work with Phobos, it seems like it's entirely plausible that at one time there was possibly Martians even mining the moon.
Yeah, because that's one thing that, it is a scientific fact. The Phobos is either hollow or something that's a lot lighter in interior than it should be for that size of an object, an asteroid. So if it's hollow, then of course that gives the idea, well, how did it get hollow?
Interesting.
So it could have been mined, it could have been used, some conjecture could have been used as a spaceship. I think there's been some science fiction stories that I've read where, people would terraform like an asteroid and use that as a living space. Instead of building a spaceship, just dig one out of an asteroid and you got it made.
Ah.
And I wonder if it isn't a coincidence that our moon doesn't seem to have the mass that it's supposed to either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what exactly was it? Was it just your interest of Mars and the stains? Where did you, or did the Phobos monolith come first, or the Mars stains?
Oh no, the Mars stains came first in my Mars anomaly research. And what it was is that the Mars Global Survey did a flyby of Phobos and took one beautiful high resolution image of Phobos. And I found that in the archives, the NASA archives. And I just studied it almost pixel by pixel the way I was doing everything else. I was just used to doing that, just like zooming in. And then that's when I saw this monolithic structure come out. And then I focused in on it and said, wow, what is that? And I asked around and all the different groups I was involved with and different people and Hoagland, all these guys. And no one's seen it. And so I did some more research on it, and that's why I got contacted by I contacted Mark Collado, who at that time was into imaging. He was involved in Mars, like the face of Mars and different artifacts of Mars. And he couldn't figure out what it was. So he introduced me to Len Fleming, who was a NASA contractor involved in imaging. So him and me, we kind of like went over it and studied it. And what we did is we actually found out we have the data of the exact angle of the camera, focus looking at it, the angle of the sun, the orbital angle of Phobos. So in other words, we can extrapolate from all that information the shadow length right? How tall this thing was. So it wasn't just a little rock. I mean, it's almost like 300 feet high.
Yeah, like I believe he said 42 stories or
Yeah,
something close to that.
Wow. Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, it's huge.
And it just seems strange because there's no other, like, it's not scattered with rocks or debris or anything like that. It just really sticks out.
Hmm.
So, like, what could it be? It really is quite the anomaly.
Yeah, and one thing I did too, again, I'm not like one of these anomaly hunters that just make up stuff, to prove,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I did is I actually made a mock-up of it. So I took some sand and kind of made it look like the surface, and I took what I thought would be. So I was trying to recreate that image.
Yeah, the effect and the shadow.
Effect of the shadows, right? As the same angle, and I took the camera, took the same angle of the picture. So once I had that, what I did then I went on a sideways view, and then you can see that it was actually a big, long structure.
Yeah, actually, you've got some great pictures of that on your website. It's what is your website? PalermoProjects.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Singular. Yeah.
And of course, singular.
Yeah.
Just project. Okay, and of course we'll make sure we link to that in the show notes so that everyone can take a look at your picture and read your paper if they haven't done so already. Of course. Did your experiment come to the same conclusion around the same scale?
Yeah. Yeah. Same scale, same size.
So two different angles have come up with the same answer.
Yeah, and Phobos is a very low gravity asteroid or moonlet. For something to be sticking straight up like that on its own, that's kind of a weird. It is an anomaly. Even if it's a natural structure, it's still quite an anomaly.
Yeah.
And actually, Buzz Aldrin made reference to it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I've seen that video.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I said, wow, he must have looked at my website because that was the only website. So I emailed him, and by the way, I know you saw this thing.
Yeah, because when I Google Phobos monolith, your website's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And same with Mars Stains, you're at the top of the list for that as well.
Oh yeah.
But I'll pop in the audio to that Buzz Aldrin clip off YouTube, and I'll play it for the listeners.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned to you too, like just recently, last week, I was watching Ancient Aliens, and they're talking about, monolithic structures, in rocks, and all of a sudden it up pops my Phobos monolith. I say,
Yeah.
So, my God, that's the same, almost the exact same cropping. I mean, they must have taken it from a website, I'm assuming. But the thing is that it's public domain. It's a NASA. I mean, I don't own it.
Yeah, exactly. It's NASA gives free will.
Yeah. So, I popularized it. I researched it. It's out there. I put it out there. But I don't have, what I'm saying? My name's not on it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad that we were able to get to the bottom of who found it and have a chat with you. Yeah, I seen that episode for sure. I'm a big fan of the Ancient Alien show. It can be a little ridiculous at times, but all in all, it opens up your mind a little bit.
Yeah, and in that case too, they just drew that in as everything else. It didn't make any sense really in the context of what they were talking about. But hey, this is monolith on Phobos,
Yeah, actually, I think it was the episode before that, the Eric von Daniken legacy. I'm actually there's a shot in they're scanning the crowd, and I'm sitting there at a table. You can see me.
Cool.
Yeah, I just noticed that 2 weeks ago or something. Because that was at the Paradigm Symposium again. Eric von Daniken was there, and yeah, if you ever have the chance, it's definitely a conference I'd recommend checking out. I had a blast over there.
Oh, cool.
So it's interesting then when you talk about the fact that Phobos is lighter and it might be hollow, and then you have this mysterious disappearance of the Russian Phobos probes. I'm more of the conspiratorial type guy out of Darren and I, and so